Good morning and welcome to City Hall. We're going to get started with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Paul Kerbus is the pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church. He's going to lead us in the invocation. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman Pettis if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. But would everyone please stand?
Let us pray. Gracious God, creator of community, we give you thanks for the privilege we have to live in this wonderful city that's filled with all of its energy and its true and bold vision for tomorrow. And yet we also realize that we have our challenges to overcome, and like many cities, problems to address. We give you thanks for this city council and those who are chosen by you in this community to offer leadership and guidance in the many issues that our community faces. So we pray that you will give them wisdom and a true balance of grace and justice so they can fulfill their responsibility and do what is in the very best of the public they serve. We pray these things knowing that yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let me ask Robbie Kenzel, who's our arch liaison, to come forward. We're going to start this morning by handing out our Cityscape Awards. We have an award that's called the Curtis A. Schwartz Cityscape Award. Mr. Schwartz was a great advocate of the arts in Oklahoma City. I know, Claire and Stephen Schwartz are both here today. Where are they? There you are. Would you all stand up so we can honor you? Thank you. Let's show our appreciation to the Schwartz family. This award is presented biennially to recognize outstanding construction, design, restoration, or renovation. It is presented primarily to businesses or other entities that make a contribution to the aesthetic quality of the city of Oklahoma City by displaying art or through the use of architecture or landscaping, which is acceptable to the public. And John Seward, who is the chair of the Arts Commission Awards Committee, is going to come forward and help us present the awards.
I think our arts commissioners were going to join him as well.
Okay, let's bring up all the arts commissioners that are with us this morning.
A very large committee.
Morning, John. All right, the first award goes to the Oklahoma City Community Foundation, and Nancy Anthony is here to accept the award. Let's show our appreciation to Nancy. Congratulations for all you do. Hold that award up. You know, as awards go, this is quite becoming.
Thank you. In honor of John Bell, so we're very appreciative of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. As Nancy said, if I had read the next paragraph, the award is for Flamenco by Jonathan Hills, which is located in the Paseo Arts District. The sculpture was commissioned in memory of John Belt, and we also have Joy Reed Belt with us here today. Is Joy here? She's not here today. Okay. All right. The next award is for the Western Avenue Association for the Western Avenue Murals, and these are projects that have been going on for a couple of years now. Let's have everybody come up from the Western Avenue Association, but yeah. Rachel Taylor is the executive director. Rachel, come on up to accept the award. All right. Let's turn this way with the cameras. You can all see everybody. All right. Thank you very much. Tell us about the awards.
Well, we're honored to have this award. We worked with Midtown Rotary and Google to bring all of these beautiful 8 total murals with 15 different artists over the course of 2 years. So we're very grateful for that. We have one of our lead artists here, Jared. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for all you're doing. And I think everyone that's been around Oklahoma City for a while has seen Western Avenue evolve and grow and deal with the growing pains and then grow some more and then deal with the growing pains. And it's become a real asset for the community and one of those areas of town where I know visitors really enjoy seeing. Because you can tell it is so organic and so Oklahoma City. So thank you to the local business leaders and residents who put up with all of us who just want to come in and enjoy it. Thank you very much. Let's show our appreciation again. My thanks to the committee. And while we're here, let's give our thanks to the Arts Commission, who does such a wonderful job of dealing with all the opportunities we have in Oklahoma City with presenting public art. And as we do every month, we choose one of our over 4,000 employees to be the Rotary Club Oklahoma City Employee of the Month. And I'm going to announce that Daryl Cole from our Public Works Department is here. Daryl, come on up. Congratulations. There's a little bit of story behind this. Sometimes these honors are selected by staff and managers. But today it actually, I think, started from some correspondence we got from a citizen. Dina is here, and I don't know, Dina, do you want to come up and talk and talk about this, or would you rather I just kind of paraphrase your story for you? Okay. Dina is an artist and has a studio here in Oklahoma City. When she found out we were building sidewalks, she didn't know how concerned she should be. But so she worked with us through the process. Her business, her life was impacted, but she was very enlightened by the way that the city dealt with her needs and tried to make it as convenient as possible for her, so we could make these improvements in the city and try to figure out how best to accommodate her and her business. And so Daryl was one of those who kind of looked over the project, and we got sidewalks going on so many different places around the community. We thought it appropriate to draw some attention to Daryl, who worked so hard in that and many other areas. So Daryl, thank you very much. We have a proclamation. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas Daryl Cole has been a city employee for 22 years and is the Chief Sewer and Right-of-Way Inspector in the Field Services Division of the Public Works Department. Whereas Daryl supervises 9 construction inspectors in sanitary sewer construction and right-of-way inspections and administers monthly sidewalk and right-of-way contractor licensing exams. Whereas Daryl has a great work ethic, is committed to quality work and good communications, and he is a great role model for other inspectors as he leads by example. Daryl was nominated for Employee of the Month by a resident who on her daily walks observed and interacted with him while he was supervising a project that involved replacing sidewalks, resurfacing streets, and installing ADA signals in a neighborhood where she owns a building. Whereas Daryl, as described by the resident, is everything you could ask for in a city employee. He knew his job and commanded respect of those with whom he worked well and easily in a variety of disciplines and crews, and knew how to be tough but not mean. Whereas Daryl is always clean, neat, and polite, takes citizens' concerns seriously, is a good listener, and explains things well, can read people clearly, and is very alert and perceptive. He is a natural leader and teacher and a creative problem solver. Whereas Daryl knows when to use his great humor and takes his job seriously. His motto, know what you are doing, do a job once, and do it right. Whereas Daryl's supervisor agrees with the resident's nomination, an excellent job of describing Mr. Cole's commitment to quality work and great communication. Whereas his council desires to recognize Daryl Cole for his dedication, professionalism, and commitment to the residents of the city of Oklahoma City. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the city of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Daryl Cole, April 2016, South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month.
Let's show our appreciation to Daryl and his co-workers. And I'll give you the microphone if you say anything, but first we have to vote on this. Is there a motion? All right, cast your votes. And now it's official, Daryl. Congratulations. You're our employee of the
I would like to say something. I'd like to thank Dina Mado for the nomination, and also Mr. Winger and Toon for their part in it, and City of Oklahoma City for all they've done for me. Thank you.
Thank you. We should like to clone you and move you around the city. There you go. Thanks very much. Now, when you woke up today, you might not have known it was National Service Recognition Day, but it is about to become that. We have several people who give their lives and have dedicated their professional careers to making Oklahoma City a better place. Let's have everybody come up. Everybody come up for national recognition. I know that some of the names I know are here: Teresa Long, Abby Klepper, Melinda Points, Amy Roth, Jim Priest, Patrick O'Kane, Beth Patterson, Carrie Ogden, Robin Convention, Sally Fitter. I see Rodney Bivens coming up as well. We have a proclamation. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenges, the nation's cities are increasingly turning to national service and volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet their needs. Whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants address the most pressing challenges facing our communities, from educating students for the jobs of the 21st century and supporting veterans and military families to provide health services and helping communities recover from natural disasters. Whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve. AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants serve in more than 50,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. Whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. Whereas national service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making an intensive commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. Whereas the Corporation for National and Community Service shares a priority with county officials and mayors nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities, National Association of Counties, Cities of Service, and mayors and county officials across the country for the Mayor and County Recognition Day for National Service on April 5th, 2016. Now therefore, Mick Cornett, the Mayor of the City of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim April 5th as National Service Recognition Day in Oklahoma City, and he encourages residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our city, to thank those who serve, and to find ways to give back to their communities.
Let's show our appreciation to those that are giving so much back to our community. Jim Priest with Sunbeam Family Services.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, probably when you woke up this morning, as the Mayor was saying, you probably did not know it was Service Day, because these are folks who work behind the scenes quietly, investing in the community, and we at Sunbeam, and I know Rodney at the Food Bank and other nonprofits are so grateful for their participation. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for recognizing these great folks that do improve lives and invest their lives in the community.
Thank you, and one more round of applause for these that give so much. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. All right, we're on item 3B of the council agenda, and item 3B is that James Greiner will be sitting in for vice mayor over the next 6 months. James, look forward to working with you on that, and I want to thank Councilman Pete White for the last 6 months of service. Is there a motion on item 3B? Do we need to vote on this, or is it just a notification?
Just a notification.
All right, that allows us to move on to item 4 then, the Journal of Council Proceedings. 4A is to receive the journal for March 29th, and 4B is to approve the journal for March 22nd. Is there a motion on the journal? All right, cast your votes. Journal passes unanimously. And then item 5 is request for uncontested continuances.
Mayor, a couple this morning, starting on page 10, under item 9C1, item A, 1405 Southwest Grand, we ask that that be stricken, the owner's removed. And item N, 317 Southwest 38th Street, we ask that that be stricken, we need to re-notify. Moving on to 9E1, item B, 2424 Southwestern, we ask that that be stricken, the owner secured. Item D, 1432 Northeast 11th Street, we ask that that be stricken, the owner secured. And item L, 265 Northwest 80th Street, we ask that that be stricken, the owner secured. Then moving on to 9F1, E, 2424 Southwestern, we ask that that be stricken, again, the owner secured. Item F, 1432 Northeast 11th Street, we ask that that be stricken, the owner's secured. Item O, 317 Southwest 38th Street, we ask that that be stricken, we need to re-notify. And item S, 265 Northwest 80th Street, we ask that that be stricken, the owner has secured.
All right, any other requests for uncontested continuances? All right, we're on to item 6. It's for revocable right-of-way use permits, and the American Heart Association is asking to hold the Heart Walk April 9th. That would be in Ward 6 and Ward 7. And Jody Osborne, come on forward. Good morning. We will need your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, it's 3401 Northwest 63rd Street, Oklahoma City 73116.
And tell us about the Heart Walk.
Okay, the Heart Walk is this Saturday, April 9th. It kicks off at 9:30 at the Chickasaw Bricktown Ballpark. There's a 1-mile route and a 3-mile route. Generally, heart disease and stroke survivors choose to walk the 1-mile route. It's a little easier, but it's definitely a non-competitive, just a fun event. Great way for the community to come out and for us to spread awareness about the importance of getting up and getting moving and getting active. So booths open at 8 o'clock. You can come down and have a blood pressure screening, see a CPR demonstration. We'll have face painting and clowns and all sorts of fun things for kids. And it's a great event because we have CEOs walking with their employees. We have whole families coming out. You can bring your kids. You can bring your dogs on a leash. We expect between 10,000 and 12,000 people to converge on downtown Oklahoma City.
And how can people sign up if they just now hearing about it?
They can sign up at okcheartwalk.org. There's actually no fee to participate. Anyone can show up and walk for free on Saturday morning. But the way we raise our funds is through corporate sponsors and fundraising walkers. And the City of Oklahoma City actually has a team. Annette Willis in Procurement Services is heading it this year. And so if you work for the city and you want to join the city team and walk on Saturday or raise funds, you can contact Annette in Procurement and she can get you all signed up.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for what you're doing out there, and I wish you the best of success this Saturday morning, 9:30 at the ballpark.
Yes.
All right, how about a motion on the Heart Walk? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
We'll recess the council meeting, convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. Looks like 6 items now under the MFA. All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCMFA, convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. 2 items. All right, comments or questions on the PPA? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCPPA, convene as the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust. Just the claims and payroll today. All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCEAT and reconvene the council meeting with a consent docket. All right, are there any individual considerations? Ed?
7U, 1 and 2, please.
U, 1.
We have presentations on both
Okay.
those items.
Okay.
And Mayor, I would like to ask if we could pull 7U and vote on that one separately. You have 7U1 and vote on that one separately.
Okay. All right. O? Okay. All right, what do you want to start with the presentation?
That'd be great. Mark Bedford is here on item U1. What's the catchy title of his project?
Yeah, Mark Beffert with Newmark Grubb, address 204 North Robinson.
Good morning.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk about our project today. You guys may have read in the paper, we've been at this for about a year and a half. We're going to build, or we're intending to build, in 4 different projects. Do you guys have a packet in front of you, or are we all just looking at the screen?
Well, I'm looking on the screen.
Okay, great. You guys have screens in front of you?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. We've given you a quick overview of the project. We have 345 units. If you see a little chart below that, we actually have 4 different buildings. You can see the different size of stories as well as parking structures that go with each building. And then the number of units is 345. We're actually building 805 parking spaces. That's significant. If you look right above that, we actually have 2.33 parking spaces per every unit. And typically you'll see more in the 1.5 range. We're building some additional parking because this particular area is growing, and we have or hope that we will house all of the demand in the area for the music venue that I think has come before you in the past, as well as the 21C Hotel. And there's some ancillary retail services that we're going to have in ours, as well as the architectural firm of ADG has moved into the 21C Hotel facility. So we're hopefully going to house all the parking in there. We're also going to build 67 on-street parking spaces as we redo Main Street and Sheridan and Fred Jones Avenue as it extends from Sheridan to Main Street. Down at the bottom, we've given you just some highlights of what we're doing in the area. What we're trying to do is create a community around the 21C Hotel and, again, the music venue. We're going to spend about $3 million plus or minus on infrastructure that's on the street level, and we're going to carry Project 180 improvements down through the project. And part of our project, and we'll get to a site plan here in a second, we actually closed a portion of Fred Jones Avenue, and that is complete. And then finally, this particular site had some environmental issues, and we've cleaned all those up, and we should get some final information from DEQ on that. So if you look on the right-hand side, our project cost is in the $66 million plus or minus range, which is about $150,000 per unit. We're also spending about $18,000 per parking space. So the project itself is fairly expensive compared to typical apartment complexes. Most apartment complexes that you see built around Oklahoma City have what you call a stack and wrap, which is what you put the parking structure in the middle, and then you wrap your units around it. So the cost is a little less expensive. And typically, to house the number of parking spaces in that type of environment in an urban community, they're in the 140 to 145,000, excuse me, per unit, including the parking. What we're doing is we're building 2 separate parking structures that actually have a facade. And number 2 of the structures actually have what we call podium, which is 1 or 2 levels of parking with apartments on top of it to create this community. And that's how we had to fit within our site as well. Below that, we've given you what we believe our projected rents are going to be. And I've highlighted the middle one, which is $1.60 per square foot per month. And the reason I've highlighted that because I've given you some of our financial projections for this project, and that's based upon the $1.60. We don't know where we're going to, that's a $64,000 question when you do developments, whether it's commercial or residential. So we're fairly liberal in our monthly rents, because if you stabilize at 93%, we're going to end up having a stabilized capped cost of only 5.8% or a cash-on-cash return of 7%. We are applying for a HUD loan. We cannot typically, if you guys have seen projects come before you, typically you do what you call a D4 loan, which is a typical residential HUD loan. We can't do that because we have the ancillary revenue, and a HUD loan is pure multi-housing, so we have to go to a different program. fairly similar, but it's a little stricter in different areas. So we're doing what we call a 220F loan with HUD. We had planned on, excuse me, we had planned on filing our HUD app last Friday. Now it looks like it's going to be a week from this Thursday we'll actually get our HUD app in. So I'm open for questions.
All right. Questions for Mark? You want to go ahead and make your comments now, or you want just? Yeah, are you through with the presentation?
Yeah. I'm sorry, let's go through the next page gives you the site plan, and we actually identify the 21C hotel, then the music hall, and you can see our 4 different buildings that wrap around that. In Building A at the top, we ultimately had 2 different sites there, so then we went for the closure of Fred Jones Avenue to make that one large site, because otherwise we were really having a difficult time connecting that particular facility, so it really looks fairly well. If you go to the next slide, that'd be great. This gives you a pictorial on the right side, which is Building D, which is kind of the staple, and it looks down onto Fred Jones Avenue, and that's looking up north. So you're actually looking north towards, in the backdrop, before you see the county jail, you actually see Building A in the back. And then this is the garage that fronts on Main Street in Classen. And that actually serves both overflow for the music hall, 21C, ADG, as well as Building C residents. This is the center courtyard on Building C, and just in front of us that you can't see on the page is a music venue. So the music venue will look out onto this pool area. Again, that's in the center of the Building C. And this is actually on Building D, which is a rooftop waiting pool that will serve all the residents throughout all the project. This is really our only pool other than Building C. And this is where our clubhouse, the clubhouse is going to be in Building D. And this pool is actually on the 4th floor, looking down onto Fred Jones Avenue. And the last picture kind of gives you a southwest view look of Building D, B, and A, kind of how it's going to look looking southwest. So. I'm sorry, I'm open for questions now.
Okay. Ed?
So looking at this, I love the development. I love the size of the buildings and the density. At the Mayor's Roundtable, there's going to be a speaker from Google who's going to talk about autonomous vehicles and car sharing, which is an amazing choice, I think. It's going to talk about how it'll impact development going forward. As you look out 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future, there's an argument that autonomous vehicles, car sharing is going to radically change the parking requirements. Do you think we need 2.33 parking spaces per unit 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now? Because ultimately that's what the taxpayers are throwing into this. I assume the $4 million is to help with the parking garages. That's what we've done on other residential. Do you think we need 2.33 into the future? Not necessarily today in 2016, but 10 years from now.
Absolutely. Now, we actually, I would say today we probably don't need 2.33, but we have a music venue that we believe that we need to park, and it's a music venue that will house up to 2,000 people on particular event nights. Plus, the 21C hotel doesn't have any parking, so we're hopefully trying to provide parking for them. So from a residential, I do believe over time, I mean, some cities are actually seeing 0.8 or one spot per resident. Unfortunately, we're not there in Oklahoma City. And will we get there in the next 5 to 10 years? I hope so. But unfortunately, we like to drive our cars. And when people visit the hotel or ADG or the music venue, or even have visitors for our residents, everyone drives their own car. Very seldom do we see a whole lot of carpooling. So we believe that, frankly, we actually have 67 on-street parking spaces. And I will say that we are doing about $3 million of infrastructure work as well as streetscapes. So we're really not, the money that we're asking for, requesting from the TIP, absolutely doesn't just go for parking. If you look at our overall budget, if you take the parking and put it in our per unit, we're actually spending over about $205 $1,000 per unit, which is a lot of money. And it's not necessarily the number of parking spaces, but it's also the type of parking spaces. The city of Oklahoma City built their garage, which is a City Arts garage, and theirs costs more than ours, and part of the reason is because of the facade and how we're doing it. But we've done all we can to try to lower those costs. But when you build podium and separate parking structures on 4 different sites, and you have to park each it becomes difficult. So.
It seems like if there was a development where you could start to see a change in behavior, it would be this one. And Oklahoma Cityans may love to drive their cars, but I suspect the younger generation, as the decades go past, it's not going to be like Oklahoma City of the past. So it does seem overbuilt, but I understand your point and the infrastructure investments. My second question just goes to affordable housing. Was there discussion of the, 345 units or about?
Well, when I say the $1.60 per square foot month, that's on average. We do have rents as low as about $1.15 per square foot. Now, will that be categorized as low-income housing? No. But we do have some on the lower scale, and we have some at about $2 per square foot per month, some of the larger units.
What would that be, Mark? Help me with the math. What would a monthly payment be on that entry level?
Those units are the smaller units, so call them 700 square feet. We actually have some micro units, some very small units that would really kind of a studio would be about 500. So you're looking at about 800, anywhere from as low as $600 to $900 is the majority of the units.
Okay.
You may have mentioned this, but as far as completion, will completion be staggered, and can you give me kind of a timeline of A, B, C, and D, the construction of those buildings?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we make our HUD app a week from this Thursday. HUD has 60 days to approve our app or ask for further information. Our goal and hope is that we'll start construction August or September range. It'll be about a 2-year project. We will start with the parking garage on C as well as structure C, and then move around the block. And then we will actually have residents hopefully starting to pay rent and occupying space within about 15 months, and then complete all the way through Building A. Yeah.
Okay.
Did I answer your question? I want to make sure I satisfy. Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions on item U? We have some other items on the consent docket for discussion. All right, Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mark, you wanted to talk about item O?
Just briefly, I'm happy to announce a street widening project that's going to occur in Ward 8 and Ward 7 specifically. It's on Western Avenue from 164th to Northwest 178th Street. Street widening and some sanitary installation, all for an increased amount of about $150,122. If anybody has any questions about the project, please call me.
And looks like we have another presentation. I was thinking that was both, but Kathy O'Connor is here for a presentation on item U2.
Good morning. This morning, we have an item on the consent docket to ask for your approval for a TIF allocation for $4.5 million to acquire land around the new convention center site. Just as a little bit of background for this item, and a little bit of the kind of the legal background, the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Authority is the entity that the city can use to acquire land for private redevelopment. But we also have the ability to acquire land for public uses, and sometimes using urban renewal as the acquisition entity for property gives the city a little bit more flexibility in figuring out how development will happen, who will the final owners be, and exactly what the uses will be. So just as a little bit of background, in 2002, the City Council approved the Downtown Maps project plan, which is the Downtown TIF District. In 2010, the City Council declared the Court Shore area blighted, and that was the first step in the preparation of an urban renewal plan. In March of 2010, the Council approved Court Shore as an urban renewal plan area. And in 2014, the council authorized OCURA to enter into acquisition agreements with property owners to promote private redevelopment. And at that time, the city council approved what's called an acquisition area, and we have a map of that that kind of outlines, you give us specific permission to acquire land in a certain area, and that's the only areas that we can operate in. The item today is to further carry out the objectives that were set out in 2014. This area is already a part of the acquisition plan area that was approved by council in 2014, but it's to buy parcels to the east and the south of the convention center boundaries. Some of these parcels, we'll get to the map in a minute, but some of these parcels are split by either part of them may be in the convention center and part of them may be in the relocated Broadway. And many of them we believe we will need for public parking to support the convention center. It was the recommendation of the Downtown Maps Increment Tax Review Committee to approve the allocation for $4.5 million for acquisition in this area. So we'll look at a couple maps now. So this is the map. The red outline is the urban renewal, the Court Shore urban renewal boundary. The blue lines represent the boundaries of the acquisition area that was approved in 2014. So as you can see, we have had approval to acquire property on the west and east sides of the downtown MAPS 3 Park and around the convention center areas. This is the area where we would like to undertake acquisition with the $4.5 million that's before you today. The blue outline represents the convention center boundary, and then the second blue line to the east represents the boundary, the approximate boundary of the relocated Broadway. As a part of the convention center project, Broadway will be relocated to the east. So some of these parcels, and we use this parcel numbering system that's shown on the map, some of these parcels are split by either part of them are in the convention center area or in Broadway, and the remainder of them we believe, as I said, we will need for parking or possibly private redevelopment. I think the area to the south of the convention center is very important for private redevelopment, that we make sure that we have the kinds of uses in that area that support and complement the convention center. And that really pretty much sums it up. I'll be glad to take any questions, but this is just part of a continuing process to acquire property to support MAPS 3.
Just want to add that the land acquisition for the convention center is going really very well. We've got a couple under eminent domain, but we've acquired most of the tracts out there, and we're very, very close to our budget as we're going forward to where we said we'd be. So that part of it's going very, very well.
Yeah, and urban renewal has been leading the efforts to acquire the land for the convention center. As Jim said, it's gone very well. We're well within the budget that we presented to council and hope to have that wrapped up in the next few months.
Can the $4.5 million only be used for land acquisition?
Yes, and the related costs, title, survey,
right.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
In the time, so was it 2012 that we did, because we've done a $5 or $6 million TIF allocation for Court Shore land acquisition.
There was a previous allocation.
And that border was a little bit different. It went up to Broadway?
It was the acquisition boundary that was on the previous map.
Okay.
And we could have bought anywhere in that area.
So we've spent all of that $5 million?
Yes.
Okay. So part of this land acquisition is in the convention center boundary.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So could you argue that we're using TIF funds to augment the convention center land acquisition budget?
You could, but I think at the end we'll have to do some kind of, the council will have to consider whether or not they want those TIF funds to continue to support the convention center project, or if they want MAPS 3 to pay back the TIF fund. So I think all of that will be yet to come when we know the exact boundaries, the exact dimensions of the property involved. We don't have all of those things, really nailed down at this point in time.
There'll be a final balance sheet brought back to council.
So there would be the possibility to have MAPS pay back the TIF2 account?
Yes, yes, that is a possibility. Or that if some of it is for private development and the private developers buy the property, that they would pay back TIF 2.
Well, why not make the boundary outside of the MAPS 3 responsibility and just acquire everything outside the MAPS 3 boundary? And use MAPS 3 funds to do convention center acquisition, and if you come up short, then come back to the TIF.
Because some of the parcel lines don't line up exactly with the boundaries, and if we have to use eminent domain, we need to have the flexibility that some of it might be used for parking or a private use, and some of it will be used for public uses. It is really to allow us the greatest degree of flexibility if we are forced into a situation where we have to use eminent domain. And as a reminder, it is always our last choice, but we do know we have a few property owners in this area that it will probably be necessary to use eminent domain.
So with this, I mean, would you be able to use this same mechanism for other MAPS projects, like the streetcar or park acquisition?
Yeah, absolutely. If we had an allocation of TIF funds, we absolutely could. And if they were in an urban renewal area and we had an approved land acquisition area. So there's several legal steps that have to be gone through before we get there, but yes, it's a possibility.
But we don't anticipate that.
I don't know why, but yeah.
So outline for me just one more time how the final accounting, how this will go onto the MAPS budget potentially?
We'll have to have all of the properties surveyed and boundaries established for where the convention center goes and where Broadway goes. And then once we know the boundaries, we can calculate the amount of square feet that can be paid for by MAPS 3 and what will be paid for by the TIF project. Some of the property may ultimately end up being owned by COTPA, so then the council will have a decision about whether or not they want to use TIF dollars to help support COTPA to build public parking. So it's the same kind of thing, though. We'd have to calculate the amount of square footage and make that decision about whether or not we want that to happen.
And if a parcel's half in the convention center area and half out, do you just divide it half between MAPS 3?
That's why we'll have to have a survey to establish boundaries and calculate the exact number of square feet.
And the area on the south that's owned by ODOT, what's going to happen with?
Right now, we are in negotiations with ODOT to reach an agreement on parcels like this one. We will have to purchase that parcel from ODOT.
And that's part of the deal. We've done an appraisal on it.
Yeah, the appraisal's done. We just need the funds to acquire it.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions for Kathy?
Your Honor, I have a question, but could we wait until we have the vote, because it's not related to this issue, but I did want to look at the map in just a minute, if we could.
All right.
Just one more time, explain why it can't be done now. Why can't MAPS 3 pay for the part of it that's MAPS 3 and TIF pay for the rest of it? Why can't we do that now? You already have a contract to buy it at a certain price. Why can't just the purchase price be allocated between the convention center and TIF now?
Some of them possibly we could do it that way, and we will when we can. But again, in order to give us some flexibility on parcels where we may have to use eminent domain,
So the resolution of necessity is only for the convention center site itself. So if a part of that track is not in the convention center footprint, we've got a problem. And there are several.
And there are some of those, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Can you use the same mechanism where you give MAPS $3 to Okura and then Okura does that, does the eminent domain?
To acquire the convention center site, I would say no. I wouldn't want them. But, we are acting as your agent in the acquisition for the convention center. Me and my staff and staff from the municipal counselor's office and the MAPS office are doing the acquisition as a team. And we pay for those acquisitions with MAPS dollars, but they never come into the possession of the Urban Renewal Authority.
Yeah, the City Capital Improvements Fund has to be used to buy a city capital improvement. So the city has to buy the land.
I see.
as opposed to Okura buying the land.
I see.
I would much prefer a system that we didn't have to be unwound to put the MAPS 3 Convention Center at budget.
And everywhere where that's possible, that's what we're going to do. This is, I will say this is more of a general boundary so that we could capture all of the parcels that are affected by this. But on a parcel by parcel basis, MAPS 3 may be buying some of those that are within that yellow boundary. In fact, they already have, if that makes any sense at all. So for example, we've already purchased parcels V185 with MAPS $3. And that's within this boundary. Right. But we're trying to capture all of the parcels with a logical boundary, and that boundary seemed to be where Broadway is right now and Shields.
Okay.
At what point would you provide us with an exact accounting of the dollars?
Once we get it all acquired.
6 to 9 months?
Yeah, it'll probably be 6 to 9 months from now. It's all going pretty quickly, so.
I also have this underlying fear that we're setting ourselves up to say, well, we've already got the land for the hotel, and therefore the city ought to just jump on that deal without having a separate vote on the hotel.
That
is
not,
it's just,
a hotel is not in this boundary.
This is not the hotel, proposed hotel area.
the hotel won't be in this area.
That's correct, sir.
No, it will not.
Could the parking for the hotel be in this area?
There could be parking that people are in the hotel could use, yes.
The parking is going to be multi-purpose. I anticipate there'll be parking on the hotel side. But there's also going to be other parking that will be shared between, hopefully, the Chesapeake Arena and the convention center. And there'll be some parking on the south side that will be shared between the park and the convention center. And so,
It seems to me the ideal place for the parking is that back strip, everything to the east of the second blue line that runs down the middle of the acquisition area. That's an absolute perfect place for parking to share with everybody.
Then we agree with you on that. But we do think when the hotel's built, there will be some parking that will have to be a part of the hotel development. And we'd like to try to fit some parking within the convention center footprint, but that's still under evaluation.
and then we're also looking at the south side. There's an expansion area on the south side that would have some surface parking for short-term until, whenever down the line. So we're looking at at least 3 different areas, if not 4 different areas in the convention center to provide parking, or around, in or around the convention center.
All right, ready to vote? Kathy, thank you. All right, we need a motion on item 7U1, which was asked to be pulled. Is there a motion?
Move the item.
Is there a second? All right, we're voting on item 7U1. Cast your votes. And it passes 7-1. Is there a motion on the rest of the consent docket?
Second.
All right. Cast your votes on the rest of the consent docket. It passes unanimously.
Jim, Your Honor, my question, if we could look at the map again, going all the way down to the river, the area. If we could go back.
Go to the other quarter shore map.
Yeah, that one. In some waterways, the Army Corps of Engineers has control over, the shoreline. Do they have any control over our river shoreline?
Absolutely. It's declared a water of the U.S.
So any kind of activity, whether it's development, whatever, they have to approve it.
Not necessarily a sundry development, but they certainly would to any modification of the shoreline.
Okay. Thank you.
Which may or may not be a big deal, depending upon what was done.
So they'd be receptive if it was a good plan, if we saw commercial development along the shoreline, like a hotel or something.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'd have to obviously be sensitive to whatever their issues. Their issues are the volume of water that can be put down the river, and they don't want to impede that in any way. That's their major issue.
And then, Ed, going back to your comment, about parking, if the city of Oklahoma City would not be so adverse as far as its ordinances to like Uber and Lyft, we would probably see people using their own vehicles less often. especially around events.
We don't have any ordinances regarding Uber and Lyft.
We don't?
We were preempted by the state of Oklahoma, and those ordinances have been repealed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Fact is, we should have some, but we don't. The state preempted us from doing it.
Let me tell you a quick story.
We've had that debate.
To
Let's,
tell you
let's move on.
why I'm a big fan of Uber. Last fall, I have to attend a meeting down in Houston, Texas, so I fly down there, Hobby Airport, take a cab out to where the meeting is up in northern part of Houston, $65 for the cab. I catch a ride back with a partner of mine, and we go back, and he's already signed up for Uber. Combined, it's $24. There's a big difference in the cost between these private, whatever they're called, organizations and the traditional cab. And to try to prevent that from continuing to go forward, I think it's silly. It's like us trying to prevent, the onset of telephone when the telegraph system was such a strong way of communicating. We could use many other examples, but it is certainly the wave of the future.
And I think we're going to hear that at the Mayor's Development Roundtable, and I just think that's an incredibly important speaker that's coming, and I hope consideration gives in development going forward with what she says.
Can we clarify, we do not have any ordinances that
But this argument is revisionist argument. The argument was not that Uber and Lyft are not good, cheaper. The argument is, why do you hold one entity to one standard with regard to safety and insurance and another one to no standard? That's the argument. It's not whether it's cheap or not. It'd be cheaper if I took you. Next time you convince me to drive to Houston and take you. It's not about price. It's about the difference in the standards that the government holds them to. That's what it's about. So, I don't want to debate it again. I lost the last one, but this is a revisionist argument to talk about it being cheaper. It is cheaper. Hell, everybody knows it's cheaper. $24 less than $65. Even people that went to Southeast can do that math. But it's not. That's not the point.
I just wanted to point out we have just jumped to items from council. This is actually off the subject matter of the agenda. So just to clarify, we're on items from council right now.
All right, nothing on the concurrence docket today, which moves us to item 9. These are items that require a separate vote. We'll begin with the zoning case in Ward 2. This is item 9A. It's been deferred a couple of times. We have one person that signed up to speak.
So, I think that we have an agreement on 3 separate amendments.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. There were a series of amendments that were submitted to us via the Municipal Counselor's Office. There were 2 last Friday, 1 late yesterday that was a substitute amendment to Amendment 1. So we are in agreement with the substitute Shadid Amendment Number 1 as submitted by Mr. Jordan April 4th, and then the original, what is called the Shadid Amendment Number 2 as submitted by Mr. Jordan on April 1st.
And then do we have one more that J.J. Chambliss?
Yes, J.J. had a series of amendments that staff had requested and maybe some that Planning Commission had originally wanted, but mostly staff.
Yeah, these were subsequent to the Planning Commission hearing, so we need to read those into the record here at Council. Let me briefly go through these, and I think they're all agreed upon with the applicant.
Are these the ones that me, you, and Ms. Powers discussed?
That came from, yes.
Okay.
The first would be delete animal sales and services and kennels, tattoo parlors, piercing parlors, and convenience stores from the uses permitted in buildings 1 and 2. The next would be to delete kennels and veterinary from buildings 3 through 6. Amend the additional use restrictions to limit mechanical equipment such as generators and dumpsters within 20 feet of the residential property line, and to clarify that the screening fence along the west property line is 8 feet in height. We want to amend the access restrictions to clarify that the driveways that enter the site and exit the site are designed and built in such a manner that it would discourage traffic from turning out and going back into the neighborhood. They would direct traffic towards Western Avenue. We would amend the screening regulations to clarify that the landscape buffer is 12 foot 8 inches in width, and that we would amend the sign regulations to state that all of the signs will be consistent with the exhibit that was provided by the applicant on the building elevations. Amend the parking regulations to clarify that buildings 3 through 6 will have attached garages that are accessed from a private drive. Amend the lighting regulations to prohibit pole lights within the parking lot. Add a section to require a specific plan. Clarify that the common area is not occupied by any building footprints. And last would be to delete Section 12 regarding development sequence.
So I really believe if you made, I don't know whether Francis wants 3 motions, she probably wants 3 motions. If you move to adopt the amendments that JJ just submitted to you as one motion, and then substitute Shadid Amendment number 1 and substitute Shadid Amendment, Shadid Amendment number 2 would be the 2 other motions.
And for purposes of the record, the amendments read in by Mr. Chambliss have been submitted to staff, so they do have those. The document will need to be amended to comport with Shadid Amendment number 1 and Shadid Amendment number 2, which we will do soon.
Just a couple of comments on, I mean, as you can see, there was a lot of work that had to go into between the Planning Commission and the City Council meeting. And I want to thank the neighborhoods for the great meeting we had last week. I want to thank the applicant and David for extending the continuance 1 additional week that allowed us to have that meeting with the neighborhood and get all the work done. I want to thank Mick and David and John for voting for a continuance 2 weeks ago, and Mark, not once but twice, making a motion for a continuance shorter after we were unable to get a continuance. But I would just make a plea with the council that we return to maybe the way things were 5 years ago and were, I understand, for decades, where if a counselor, and certainly the planning commissioner and traffic commissioner, asked for a continuance, that we'd be able to do that. In this case, it was very, very important that we had this 4 weeks, which is what we originally asked for. And I think that was the standard before, and I think it's very, very important that we had this 4 weeks, and we got a much better project. Actually, the controversy about the parking lot wasn't, actually the applicant wouldn't have been able to do that if we had voted 4 weeks ago, paradoxically. So it was the continuance that allowed staff to figure out that the PUD actually doesn't allow that. Certainly there's a place to not do a continuance. I thought Mick's vote last week on the impact fees was one of the best I've seen in the last 5 years, and I applaud it. But here, when a councilor and planning commissioner and traffic commissioner are asking, I would hope that we could always get that continuance. And David, I would hope that in the future on other developments, we can always do what we did here, which is great getting it all worked out. And I really appreciate the extra week that we got.
Absolutely. We thank you for your work on this as well, and we agree. We hope that now we have a PD document that is not only a win for my client, but the neighbors as well. Thank you.
Great. Okay. We do have one person that signed up to speak today, Peggy Johnson. Hey, Peggy, have your concerns been addressed here?
Yes, sir. Peggy Johnson, 1139 Northwest 48th Street, and the councilman addressed those, and I appreciate y'all's consideration.
All right. Thanks for coming down today. All right. Well, first, we need 3 motions, and then we'll vote on the ordinance. The first is the staff amendments. Can we have a motion on the staff?
I'll move the staff amendment.
All right. Is there a second? All right. Cast your vote on the staff amendments. Passed unanimously. Then we need a vote on a substitute Shadid Amendment number 1.
And this, for the record, this is the one that Janice wrote that.
Correct. And yes, this is the one Janice Powers drafted this, and I sent it to City Council yesterday. So, and
okay.
David.
So I move that.
All right. All right. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Then we need a substitute Shadid Amendment number 2.
No, that one's not substitute. It's just Shadid Amendment number 2. It was submitted last Friday.
Okay.
I move that.
Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Then I need a motion on the ordinance.
I move the ordinance.
Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Thanks. All right, item 9A2 is a zoning case in Ward 3 at 3708 Northwest 14th Street. It's currently R1 single-family residential, C3 community commercial, and it's in a SPUD. And it would all become a new SPUD if it's approved. Larry?
Yes, is the applicant present? Before we go any further, there was an easement involved, Bob. Have we got the easement?
We've determined the easement is not necessary. It's
Easement's not
covered.
necessary?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, good
If you'd
morning.
like to speak to the council.
We'll need your name and address for the record.
Maria Zuniga, 1415 North Portland. It's 3708 Northwest 14. She's saying the other street, the other address.
Okay.
We tried to do like a park, we have a business there, it's a restaurant, and we're trying to put like on the back, we have burrito trucks, and we need like a parking space. And like we tried to do like the drywall, no, how you call it, like the concrete stuff. We just need to park the trucks on the back.
Okay.
Has anyone signed up? Okay, there was one neighbor who voiced some concerns, but never got back to me, so since they're not here today, I'll move for approval.
All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9A3 is a zoning case in Ward 8 at 16820 North Penn. It's in a PUD currently, and it would be put into a new simplified plan unit development if approved. Mark?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an ordinance on final hearing to approve SPUD 875 from PUD 460. It is, there were no protests. It was approved by the Planning Commission. I'm excited to say that this is the fiber optic network for OKC that's being brought forth by Google. It's called the Google Fiber Hunt Location. And I would say I'm a very strong supporter of the applicant, and I'd move for the approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on 9A3? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9A4 is a zoning case in Ward 7 at 940 Northeast 68th Street. It's currently R1 single-family residential, and it would be put into a new SPUD. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak? Is the applicant present? I do see the applicant is present. The Planning Commission did approve this item, and there was no protest. And what this application is to bring the property, to bring the zoning into conformance with the use of the property. And currently there are, this property is being used for apartments. I see the applicant is present. I'm getting ready to make the motion to approve. Do you have anything to add?
No.
Good response, good response. I move for approval.
Second.
All right, cast your votes on 9A4. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Item 9A5 is a zoning case in Ward 2 at 3508 North May. It's currently C3 community commercial, and it would be put into a new SPUD if approved. Ed?
Has anybody signed up to speak?
No.
I'd move for approval.
All right, cast your votes on 9A5. Passes unanimously. Item 9A6 is a zoning case in Ward 4 at 3616 South Harvey Avenue. It's currently R1 single-family residential, and it's looking to be put into a new SPUD.
Has anyone signed up to speak? I'd move approval.
All right, we're voting on item 9A6. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9B is an ordinance to close an alleyway. Meg, you okay with this?
Yes, I am, Mayor. Francis, has anybody signed up for this one? No, there were no protesters when this was presented to the Planning Commission. Staff recommended approval, and it was moved by the Ward 6 Planning Commissioner, so I'd move approval.
Second.
All right, we're voting on 9B. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9C is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9C? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9D is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures in the Historic Preservation Landmark District. We have one item listed here. Is there anyone here that showed up today hoping to speak on the item under 9D1? All right, how about a motion then? Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. And we need a motion on 9D2 as well. All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9E is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9E? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9F is a public hearing regarding abandoned buildings. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9F? All right, cast your votes. Or I need a motion first. All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9G is a public hearing regarding the removal of property from an abandoned building list. This is a Ward 1 property. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on this item? All right, James, you want to make a motion on this? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9H, I understand we do not need executive session, so a motion on the resolution would be in order. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9I is claims recommended for denial. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under claims recommended for denial? All right, how about a motion? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 10A is claims recommended for approval. Anyone here hoping to speak on those items? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. Those claims are approved. Item 11 is items from council, and that brings us to an item that Councilman Pettis and Stonecipher have brought to our attention.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to take the time to thank Millwood Superintendent Dr. Cecilia Robertson Woods, and also Rania and Councilwoman Sire and Councilman Stonecipher for the work on this. Just came to our attention after several meetings with Millwood and after hearing several complaints from parents and students from the Millwood Public Schools. I'm going to ask if Kenny or Richard Smith could explain the amendment that we have made. Richard's just standing right there at the door.
All right.
Yes.
And Kenny, if you could just kind of summarize the entire issue so people at home will know what we're referring to.
Yes, this is an ordinance that deals with aggressive panhandling, and it primarily the original objective was to protect schools and minors from being solicited. So we have the amendments were submitted to council. That's item A1 there, 11A1. Delete certain wording from the title, and we are restoring existing code wording in some areas. Specifically, we restored the original code wording regarding panhandling within 20 feet of an ATM, a public toilet, or a pay telephone, and also the outdoor seating area of any cafe, restaurant, or other business. That will remain 20 feet, which is what is in the code right now. We would make 50 feet for a mass transportation stop, including but not limited to any school bus stop, and also could not panhandle within 50 feet from any land owned by a public or private school and used in whole or in part for providing education services to elementary-aged children. That was in the original ordinance as introduced. And then one final change was we would add, or excuse me, it's not quite final, but we would add, you cannot solicit from a minor less than 16 years of age. And then in the definition of begging, or panhandling, we would strike the original word unwanted and put uninvited. So I believe those are all the amendments. If you move the proposed amendments, then they'll go in the main ordinance.
Can I just ask a question of clarification to Kenny? If you hold a sign asking for money, is that covered by this 50 feet?
Yes.
Is that
You
aggressive?
couldn't do it within 50 feet. If you were outside of 50 feet, you could do it.
So anywhere in the city, if you're within 50 feet of children and you have a sign?
No, school, land used for elementary school, in whole or in part for elementary school purposes, right, within 50 feet of that land. In other words, if you have a school land across the street, you're going to have to be across the street with your sign. You couldn't be within 50 feet of that school.
What about elsewhere in the city with a sign? Is there anywhere that would be restricted?
If it was uninvited, it would, you couldn't do it to someone who's a minor, under 16.
Anywhere?
Anywhere.
So if you have a sign, I mean, how do you determine if that's unwanted or not?
The child would have to complain to the officer.
Wouldn't you have to approach the minor?
He would have to be approaching the minor, yes, to make it uninvited, but the minor would have to signal that they didn't want it.
So if you outwardly solicit.
Okay, so it's not just holding a sign that says, we'll work for food or whatever. You can't, that's not what we're talking about. It's having a sign and approaching somebody. Is that?
Or not having a sign and approaching someone.
Right.
The signs are relevant, I believe.
If you approach them and ask them how to see their driver's license would work, just so make sure they were 16 or over.
It's always going to be a matter of proof, whether you can prove that the person was under 16. They probably won't have a driver's license if they're under 16. I guess they'll have a learner's permit if they're 15 and a half, but.
I just wondered if you know, make sure you were legal.
Well, I'm sure the police. Yes.
And that problem occurs with any criminal statute, whether it's the age limit is 16, 18, 21, whatever.
All right, well, we have one person signed up to speak. Rania O'Connor. Good morning.
My name is Rania O'Connor, and I live at 1735 Northwest 12th Street, and I am the director of the Curbside Chronicle in Oklahoma City. And I agree that children should not be aggressively approached by curbside vendors, by panhandlers. I understand the necessity to protect young children from that feeling of vulnerability. But I do have some concerns with this current ordinance, and I appreciate that we have kept it at 20 feet for the cafe patios. I think that I really appreciate that's not extending. But I just want to make sure that I can be effective in making sure that my vendors can comply with this ordinance. And so I think one of my biggest concerns is that it does make it to where you can't be within 50 feet of a school bus stop, but school bus stops are not marked in Oklahoma City. It's not like a public transit stop where there's a pole and the sign that identifies that there's a school bus stop at that location. And so I will just need help figuring out where these school bus stops are to make sure that vendors know, because since they're not identified, I just don't know how to tell vendors how they can't be within 50 feet of it. Obviously, if there's a bus there at the time, they can deduce that there are children getting on the bus. But is it only when there's a bus there that it is a school bus stop, or is it considered a school bus stop regardless of buses and children being there? Also, I know that it says that it is now considered aggressive panhandling to approach someone that is under the age of 16. That was kind of brought up by Councilman White. I would also love help in knowing how I can make sure that vendors comply with that, because a lot of times in the Plaza Paseo area, there's teens walking around, and I don't know if they're 16 or 17 or 18. But we want to make sure that our vendors aren't being considered aggressive for approaching, young adult-looking individuals, as well as, from my reading of it, and I could be wrong, the way it defines solicitation of someone is using written word as well as signage or gestures. It doesn't have to be spoken word. And so I read it as solicitation. I would be considered soliciting you, even if I just have a sign that says, you know, please check out my magazine for $2. And so I just want to make sure that vendors aren't going to be soliciting minors, even if they're not approaching them, even because the way it's written as solicitation, it doesn't say you have to walk up and approach a person. It just includes even holding a sign. And then also further on, kind of a direct impact of curbside now is the including Metro Transit bus stops in this at 50 feet. That expands from 20 feet to 50 feet, an extra 30-foot buffer area where it does affect us downtown. It does affect us at certain corners where vendors are soliciting and selling magazines. But also, I just worry, not supposed to borrow trouble from the future, but with the streetcar development, I don't know what those stops are going to look like, and I assume they're going to be all around in the downtown, Automobile Alley, Midtown area as that develops. And I just want to make sure that there is still a space where our vendors can be. And those were just kind of my concerns. Thank you.
I think you ought to address them to our legal staff. All right?
I would point out the one on the soliciting or the minors less than 16 years of age was added based on a ordinance from Illinois. If you wanted to clarify that, you could say verbally soliciting, begging, or panhandling. Then you wouldn't have the issue of them just standing there holding the signs. So I don't know if you want to make that amendment to the amendment or not, but that would address her point.
I don't think it's necessary at this point. You guys want to add that? Okay, yeah, Larry?
I wonder if somebody could give me some clarification.
Rania, thanks.
In here, I read that any mass transit stop is subject to the 50 feet.
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't make any difference. I mean, any bus stop being a mass transit stop or any trolley stop in the future, this would kick in.
I'm going to assume so, but since we don't have the trolley yet, I mean, and we may make an exception for that, the whole purpose is that when people are standing there and have to wait on it, they're kind of captive, and they may not want to say, I'm going to walk away from you, leave me alone. And obviously, maybe it's not clear, but someone has to be there for it to be soliciting. So the fact that there's a bus stop, there could be a bus stop, there's nobody around, they can still be there. It's only when the children are present, the passengers are present, either waiting for the bus or going to disembark from the bus, that they can't solicit.
Mayor, if I could, Ron, I'd really like to thank you for coming down again. I appreciate your concerns. And what I'm seeing is this real attempt to educate the vendors about how they can do this and where they can operate. And I assure you that we'll continue to work with you on that. I think Rick's comment about the streetcar is very valid. We're not there yet, and I don't want to borrow any trouble from the future, so we'll have an opportunity to address how we deal with that as we get a little bit further along. But, you know, principal at Millwood has been very concerned about her kids, and we know that, and that's really where we're designed here, is to try to address that. It may not be as clear as, it's very hard to codify every single situation, but we assure you that we will work with you to try to make this as clear as possible for your vendors.
Okay. Kenny, does solicitation have to involve money, or is it the act of requesting for something? Does it have to be money? Like, what if you have a sign and you're asking somebody to sign a petition?
No, it's anything of value. If you look at the definition, with the purpose of obtaining an immediate donation of money or other thing of value.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about the issue of this Mike guy? I mean, can he still panhandle on that median since it's a certain size by Millwood?
I don't know which median you're speaking of, the one south of?
I mean, does this address the panhandling in the median by Millwood?
There are some infrastructure improvements that we are looking at in that area that ultimately will be able to address certain things, but certain parts of that median, this will address it, and certain parts of the median, it will not, but we will address it in the future for us some infrastructure improvements that is needed for kids to be able to cross the streets over in that busy interchange.
Yeah, John and I went out and looked at it, and you're dealing with at least two medians that are at issue, but the one thing that we did was we went back and looked at the ordinances, and I can tell you that that's one of the reasons we put in under 16 years of age to help with that problem. And after you hear a school superintendent and the school board president say, this is a safety problem, it's intimidating children, it's causing fear in these kids, and it causing them to maybe cut short and walk in the street, this is an ordinance to help stop that.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, you all want to make a motion? All right. We're first voting on item 11A1. These are the proposed amendments. Cast your votes. It passes by a score of 7-2. And then item 11A2 is the ordinance itself. All right, cast your votes, and it also passes 7-2. All right, items from council. Mark, you have anything else for us? All right, John? Meg? All right. David?
Yes, for those individuals living in Cleveland County, we've got an important election today, and it's to vote on a $60 million bond issue for the Moore Norman Technology Center. There are two main centers, one north of Norman and one in South Oklahoma City. These organizations are providing education opportunities to a lot of high school students these days in the STEM area. Many times these students can place out of or test out of classes once they go on to college, including some of the undergrad engineering classes. So they do a great job. They also provide great training in the area of healthcare. And in addition to serving students, they also provide opportunities to gain training and skills for adults, whether it's to enhance their current jobs or to look into a new profession. So very important election today, and I would encourage everyone to get out to vote. And I'm not quite sure if it covers the Moore school districts, which would make it, the district would go as far north as Southwest 82nd Street, or if it's solely restricted to Cleveland County, which begins at Southwest 89th Street. Thank you.
All right. Wanted to draw attention that we have some German exchange students that are here on a Rotary Exchange. Would you all stand up so we can show our appreciation, be visiting our city? Thank you all for coming. And as I recall, you're from Frankfurt? Is that right? Frankfurt? Yeah. Thank you all for visiting our city. You've been here for how long? 1 week. All right. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay. All right. Pete?
I just saw Marty there with them, and Marty's a colleague and a friend and a fellow landscaper. I saw him out landscaping the front of his office last week, and I appreciate him bringing this.
All right. Larry?
Hey, going on what David said, in Oklahoma County also, there's an election today for county clerk, I believe. So encourage all the voters in Oklahoma County to go out and vote. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ed?
Just a public meeting tonight about parks in Ward 1 and Ward 2. I'm not sure what you guys are doing this evening, but you're welcome to attend. It's a public meeting, which I really appreciate the Parks Department putting on. It's at the Will Rogers Conservatory. It's for both Wards 1 and Wards 2. I mean, we're potentially less than a year, like next spring, when we'd have to have all the park improvements lined up for the next bond. So it's past time to get public involvement. It's just a come and go. Anyone that wants to come and give your thoughts and look at where we are in Ward 2 and Ward 1 with our parks and where you'd like to see us go in the future. That's from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. tonight at the Will Rogers Conservatory.
All right. James?
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I'll be at the I'll be at that meeting tonight, so look forward to see as many people as possible.
All right. City manager reports.
Nothing, sir.
All right. Citizens to be heard. I'll ask people to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. Kenneth Johnson? Morning, Kenneth.
Good morning.
We'll need your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Kenneth Johnson. I live at 11917 Northeast 39th Street in Spencer, Oklahoma City, I guess, because I'm not really sure. It's been so confusing. But what I came for this morning is just a concern as a citizen and also as a resident of that neighborhood that the enforcement are really lack there. We have a lot of things that's going on that's destructive towards the community. One thing in particular that I've been trying to get is I bought a picture of a person that's on 4025 Anderson Road, and this guy has actually took it, siding off his house and sold it. He's got a hog pen in the front of his front yard. He don't have a septic system, and he's throwing out just waste, just raw waste. And I'm adjacent to him on the east and west side. I've called the city several times. Nothing has been done. Nothing at all.
Now, part of the difficulty that the city we've been having in that area, some of the property is currently zoned agriculture, and with its zoned agriculture, there are certain things that can be allowed, but yet still there still are some concerns. And I think we may need to revisit some things as it relates to zoning with agricultural properties. But again, to go back to Councilman White's statement about the state will go through and change what we do anyway. But there are some things that dealing with agricultural property that we do need to take a look at to be able to address some of the concerns out in that area, because we are restricted to some regard when it comes to what can be done in agricultural property for as enforcement.
What sort of response are you getting from city staff?
None.
So you're making a complaint and you're not hearing from them again?
Not hearing from them.
Well, let's ask city staff to get back in, and perhaps John is right. It could be the AA designation is limiting our ability to do enforcement. But if you'll get a business card here.
Charles Locke.
Charles.
Gentleman here to your left.
We'll visit with him after.
All right. We'll make sure you get an answer, and hopefully it's the one you're hoping to hear, but regardless, at least you'll find out what the status is.
Good.
All right.
Because,
Mayor, this problem has the potential to get much worse if Right to Farm passes. I mean, Right to Farm just virtually eliminates anybody controlling anything that goes on agriculturally zoned property. Does not make exemptions for 5-acre tracts, which is a very standard way of, that's the lowest size tract you can have for agriculture, and there are lots of them all over your ward too, I'm sure, Larry and John and I, all three, and probably some in Ward 1 also.
And Right to Farm is Initiative 777, and it will be on the ballot for citizen vote in November.
You know, I have a certain sympathy for the not regulating farmers at a certain level, but this will preempt the cities from doing anything about it. And we're already pretty hamstrung, but if Right to Farm passes, it'll even be worse.
Yeah.
Does the guy live on 5 acres?
No, it's less than 5 acres. It's definitely residential.
Okay.
Well, we might be able to do something there.
Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh. All right. No executive session today, so we're good to go. Thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.